All right, let's dive right in. How long have you been in real estate now, Felicia?
So I just hit my third year in this past July.
Nice. And which brokerage are you with?
Real broker.
Nice. And what inspired you to get into real estate?
So it's actually a weird story. So prior to real estate, I was actually a police officer with the NYPD.
Oh,
Um, Before I got into the academy, I was going for my real estate license. I was going back and like in person when they had like the All American Real Estate School. There was like not even a such thing as like online. Um, and at that time I was working at Geico and I was like, oh, I hated it. It sucked. I was like,
wait, Geico was after the NYPD?
before.
Oh, before. Okay, okay.
So I was like, I want to do something else. I had a friend who was also a realtor.
Mhm.
So I said, you know what, let me just go and get my license. Well, that got cut short when I got called into the police academy.
Mm.
So I put that on pause. Probably a little bit before the whole COVID situation happened, something just kept telling me to go back for my real estate license. So I listened to that gut intuition that never proves me wrong in life.
Mhm.
And I was doing it a little bit part-time while I was also a police officer.
Oh, that's tough.
And not to get like political or anything like that, but I decided I didn't want to be vaccinated. So I decided to retire early and I jumped into real estate full time and I haven't looked back since.
How many years were you in NYPD?
A little over 5.
Oh, so you didn't get vested yet.
So you can retire at 5. You don't get your benefits until 10.
Right.
So if I would have to wait to my 23rd year in order for me to collect any type of benefit.
So I was actually a school safety officer for 10 years.
Nice. So you kind of know a little bit about it then.
Yeah, I resigned 2 years ago. It had nothing to do with the vaccines, but yeah, I was there I did 10 years in one day just to get vested. But back into real estate. So tell us about your first year, Felicia. The first year is usually the hardest. Tell us about your first year.
Yeah, the first year I barely like did any type of deals. The first year I was pretty much like part-time.
Mhm.
And I was at a mom and pop like kind of brokerage, which they're great.
Mhm.
Nothing bad to say about them, but I do think that having the right resources and the mentorship and the coaching and the guidance and stuff is really crucial, especially when you first start out.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend when you first start out, probably getting a coach or a mentor or someone that can help you because you're going to have a hard time knowing what to do, what direction to go in when you're first starting.
It must have been really hard to juggle both, like I've heard, I remember when I was just studying for the test, I watched this guy on YouTube named Graham Stephen, and he said, if you're part-time, you're not gonna survive. You're not gonna survive because there's so many people who are doing it full time. Would you agree with that? Like, how did you survive as a part-timer?
Well, like I said, I was doing it. I had another job at the time. So that was basically how I was able to survive. But, the years after that, it was a struggle. Like if like for me, it was like I was in like survival mode. And
Yeah.
and even still in my third year, I'm just now picking up that momentum,
Mhm.
but you really have to have like, excuse my language, like balls of steel,
Mhm.
the mental capacity and the emotional capacity to get through up until I would say your third year. Some people luck out, I guess, and maybe they're very successful in their first couple of years. But for me, it was very, very hard. And everybody who knows me knows I do not sugarcoat. I do not act like I have all this business. I do what I can. I help when I can. And then, you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then it all builds up for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the first year is usually the hardest, and it's 100% commission based. You're not getting paid unless you close. On the first year, did you close at all in your first year?
I might have had like a couple rentals, but
Okay.
no like actual sales. That was actually one of the things that I did. for the first year, I used to go on Zillow and I used to send emails to for rent by owner.
For rent.
And I used to basically tell them, like, hey, I see you're trying to rent your property. I can actually do it for you. I do all background checks, income verification, and, the tenant actually pays the broker fee. So it's like at no expense to you. And I got a lot of rentals that way. And actually, one of my most loyal clients I found like that. I rented a home for her. And then she ended up buying two houses after that with me and selling one.
Nice.
So you really can't knock where you get the business. Just put your name out there, get the business how you can. And I would never knock rentals. You have some realtors out there that are like, oh, I would never touch a rental. But it's unfortunate because you can get a lot of business out of that.
Yeah, I mean, not only will you get paid, but that person might use you to purchase one day, to sell one day, or they might even refer you to a friend or cousin. So people who don't take rentals, especially in the first year you got to take what you can get. Like I can understand if you're like 10 years in with like one or two closings a month, but if you're in your first, second year, you just got to take what you can get. That's how I feel. So Felicia, walk us through a normal day in your shoes. What time do you wake up? Coffee or tea? Walk us through a normal day.
So I'm not one of those people that are like, you have to be on a schedule and you have to, work out at this time and cold plunge at this time and do your cold. Like that works for some people. I left a job that was very structured because I didn't want the structure. So now for me, it's very more free flowing. Um, I also do something else on the side besides real estate. So that also takes some of my time. So my days really, it depends. I kind of try to wake up at a decent time. Some days I'll do cold calling. Some days I'll have appointments. Some days I'll be doing my other job. Some days, like today, I'll be cleaning my house and doing laundry. I'm very free flowing when it comes to my business.
Do you work the weekends too?
I work every day. I
Yeah.
work every day.
At
So,
least
like I
one
said,
email, at least one little text, like something's gonna be done, right?
something, like I said, when I hit my third year, is when my business really started becoming a referral-based business.
Oh, that's great.
Where I was getting like a lot of referrals.
That's great.
One of the reasons why I joined real estate is to feel like I didn't have to have like a job, quote unquote, to, say. I
A
think it's a
boss.
blessing to be able to wake up and plan my day how I
How you
want.
want, yeah.
Like I said, everybody's business is different. Everybody functions differently. I'm also a night owl as opposed to a morning person. So I think whatever suits you, if you're
Mhm.
somebody that needs structure to get business and to get work, do that because I did go out and door knock expireds for a long time. I
Wow.
did, I do cold calling. I've been slacking a little bit now, but I did do that stuff. I send mailers out, like do the stuff that's going to help you in your business. If you're not making money, then you got to do what you got to do.
Yep. I mean, like I said, it's not a 9 to 5 job no more, and there's no sergeant telling you what to do it now. You got to do it all on your own. Felicia, what is your favorite thing about being a realtor?
My favorite thing about being a realtor is really just being able to help people. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I became a cop, right? Is to really help, obviously, to make money and to give me a little bit more freedom in my day-to-day life. I love real estate. I love not just being a realtor, but even investing or helping people invest. I think real estate is one of the best wealth tools for especially an average person
Mhm.
just to get started. So I feel like everybody should have that same opportunity. I feel like everybody should be able to own a home. So, if I can help in that process, that's really, rewarding for me.
Yeah, I mean, so I heard a few different answers in there. One was helping people, but another one was freedom, which is my favorite thing about being a real estate agent, because the NYPD has a lot of mandatory overtime. I'm sure you had a lot of mandatory overtime, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so, that's one thing I love about real estate. No, nothing is mandatory. And, like that's really good for people who are good decision makers and who don't necessarily need someone telling them what to do or pushing them. What I would say is that real estate is for people who are good at pushing themselves. Because if you're not good at pushing yourself, there's no way you're going to survive in this industry. Wouldn't you agree with that?
100%. And I did have, I was on a team for a little bit and I did have a coach and I learned a lot from that experience and I did get the structure from that in that small amount of time. For me personally, I work better I feel like not on a team because of the fact that, like you just said, I get to structure my business how I want. I get to make my schedule how I want. I don't necessarily have to follow somebody else's schedule. And for me, that works better. For somebody else, that might be exactly what they need for that push and that motivation and to go. But at the end of the day, my bills and my motivation, right?
Yeah,
That's the
that's
stuff that
enough.
keeps me up at night. I don't need, somebody telling me you got to do your calls. I got the mortgage company telling me if you don't do your calls, we're gonna freaking foreclose on your house. You know what I mean? Like it's that type of stress and struggle, and that's why I say that survival mode. When you have yourself, like me, to just rely on to survive, that's the biggest motivation and the drive that I think anybody will ever have. It's not going to be somebody in your ear telling you what you need to do.
Yeah, but like I said, there's no screaming sergeant in your ear. You got to scream at yourself. In real estate, you got to scream at yourself. Felicia, what is your least favorite thing about being a realtor?
Oh man, the cold calls.
Interesting. Interesting. Why is
The,
that?
the cold calls, the door knock. You know what it is? You have to get through. I think a lot of people can relate, right? No one likes to feel that rejection. No one likes to you know put in the work day in and day out and not get a result. I think getting past that mental wall, that's why I say you have to have great mental strength and emotion because you have to be able to pick up that phone every single day with no outcome, knowing that eventually the outcome is going to come and you have to overcome objections. You have to overcome just you have to work on your skills, right? Because if you're cold calling but you have no skills to convert, you're just on a hamster wheel. You're not going
Yeah,
to get anywhere, and that's going to be very discouraging. So
yeah,
I think for that emotional psychological roller coaster is probably the hardest. I think no
yeah.
matter how good you are, we just don't like to face that rejection, and that's something that you have to overcome every single day.
Thing about cold calling is you have to keep telling yourself it's a 1% chance, but I'm going to take it anyway. It's a 1% chance, but I'm going to take it anyway. Like you have to keep saying, yeah, even though it's 1%, I got to keep going, keep going. Even though deep down, it's only a 0.5% chance of that leading to a closing. You got to keep doing it over and over and over again. And so it takes a lot of persistency, is the word that I would use. Who do you use? Where do you get your numbers from?
So I have Mojo.
How's
So
your experience with them? Are they good?
yeah, I love them. I mean, it's like a three-line dialer. So you'll call three lines at a time, which makes it a lot better. You can bring up different zip codes and stuff. I think one of the things that really helps is to leverage, like if you don't want to randomly cold call, fine. At least leverage the business that you already have. So, like for instance, for me, I always felt like I needed a reason to call somebody. That's what helped make it easier for me to make the calls, whether that's inviting the neighborhood to the open house. I think that's number one. And I think as realtors, we have to add value to our clients in that way. You have to be proactive as far as like how you're selling, whether that's on the sales side or the buy side. Sales side, open house is cool. Buy side, find out where your buyer wants to buy and start calling around the neighborhood to see if anybody's been looking to sell. Um, if you just sold a property, call around the neighborhood. Hey, I just sold your neighbor's home over here. Do you know anybody else who's looking to maybe be your neighbor and move into the neighborhood? Send mailers. You can door knock that. So for me, I prefer that, leveraging the business that I already have than just the random calls.
Yeah. Well, in the very, very beginning though, you kind of do have to make those random calls to get that momentum, don't you?
But you can also, like, if you have realtor friends, that are doing business, you can always use their listings. If you have a team, like one of the biggest things that helped me when I first started, um, I had very, I was fortunate to work with a couple realtors that would let me do the open houses for them.
Nice.
And they used to say, listen, whatever buyers come in, those are your buyers. Like, we're not asking for anything. You work the open house, those are your buyers. And that's actually how I got my first buyer lead, was
Nice.
from an open house and my first closing.
Where was that listing agent present at the open house when you were there?
No,
They were outside.
no, they weren't there at all. I mean, they just trusted me to run the open house.
Right. So it's a win-win situation, they get to
Actually, no, that first one, they were there. After that, then they trusted me to do the open houses. But that first one, yes, they were there.
and it's a great win-win situation because they get to relax at home, you get your buyer, so it's like a win-win situation. So, I've never actually I have done that before with my team, but I haven't done that with anyone else. But it's definitely a win-win situation for everybody. Felicia, how has the real estate market changed since you first started?
Um, well, I think that, I mean, I feel like for me it hasn't changed much. I feel like we're in the same market that we've been in when I first started, because it's been a competitive market. Interest rates have been relatively high since I've been in it. To
Mhm.
be honest, I feel like I got into the market as a realtor at the perfect time, because you had to learn the old school ways of how to get business. It wasn't like people who joined during COVID time, where houses were just flying off of the shelves, where you didn't really, all you had needed was a license.
That's it.
Um, and so I think for me, probably just less realtors, right? Like, just
Mm.
leaving the market because it got really difficult. But I learned in a tough market. So this is kind of like what I know.
But you started 2021, correct?
Uh yes, but it was part-time. So
Right.
like I really didn't dig in full time until my second year.
Which is when COVID was over.
It was over. Right.
Right.
I didn't get to experience that
The
whole
wave.
like rush. Yeah, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, like it
Yeah,
wasn't.
that's actually one of my biggest regrets, not having it during COVID, because like I said, I heard houses were flying and people were moving to Florida and this and that, and people were selling. So I guess you kind of did get in at the right time, but the only thing is that you were working another job. So and I'm pretty sure that you no longer have to be vaccinated to be a cop, I'm pretty sure.
No, but now I do private investigations. So
Oh.
I have my own time. I'm independently contracted, so that's why it's been a major blessing for me to be able to do two things that I love. Um, so it's crazy. Life comes full circle in a lot of ways. Especially I used to work at Geico, so I do a lot of insurance stuff.
Mm.
So it's like all of the stepping stones, the jobs that I had came together full circle to where now I'm living my idea of success and freedom, is being able to work, do the things that I love, and still have, my time, get to choose my schedule, get to, do all of these things.
So as a private investigator, you choose your own hours, right?
In this situation, yes.
Yeah, so you sound like a very, very busy woman. You sound like you work at least like 60 hours a week, I'm guessing.
I manage it. I manage it. Like I said, everything is like balance in life. You know what it is. And this is why I say it's a blessing. When you're a realtor, and let's say you're not bringing in that much business, you have that like desperate energy, right? Like you're giving off that
Hunger.
salesiness, and it turns people off. The minute that you switch the energy, where you're like, okay, you know what? Like, I have something in that's paying the bills that will help me to keep progressing in my business. Because
Yep.
most entrepreneurs, if you think about it, people will always say you got to go full time to experience things. But a lot of entrepreneurs work to fund their entrepreneurial business.
Yep.
Like it's so to me, it makes sense to get to the goal quicker, right? Because eventually I want to invest. Like I own two properties, one in which I live in. I
Nice.
want to own more. How do I get there faster? Is what I told myself. So if I have extra time, right? Because real estate also gives us a lot of extra time, why not do something else that I love? Once that energy switched, it was like the universe felt it, and I started getting referral after referral. And I'm like, of course, now is when everything's going to start coming in because my attention was, not so much desperate energy on getting business.
Yeah, it's whenever I speak to realtors who have been in the job for a long time, it seems like in the very, very beginning, it's like cold calling and door knocking and marketing and this and that. And then the more years you get in the job, the more it just turns into referrals, 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 people like stuff like that. So it sounds like you're kind of entering that phase where it's like more referrals and less like running around, which must be in a really amazing spot to be.
I mean, look, I have my partners up in the Bronx, they're part of Real. They cold call religiously Monday through Friday, all day. They kill it. They're killing it in the business, but there's also three of them. So they have a system in place to where they can manage all of that business and keep it running. They live by that, and they've been in the business for 6+ years. So will they stop doing that stuff? No, probably not, because that's now built in and ingrained in them on that's how they do business. They just focus mostly on listings. They're not really focusing on buyers. So I
Interesting.
think it also depends on like what you want to focus on and how you want your business to look. Are you a realtor that wants to just focus on listings? Well, then you'll have more time to be able to do those cold calls and things like that. Do you want to be running around with buyers every single weekend? That's something also you have to decide like what you want to do as far as your business. Do you want to just focus on rentals? Do you want to be part-time? Do you want to be full-time? It all depends on you and your business. I don't think anybody should be telling anybody how they should run their business.
Yep.
I think that you should tell people what has worked, and then you let that person decide, their path.
So my personal advice is in the first year, experiment. Try it all, the cold calling, the door knocking, the marketing, the EDM. In the first year, just experiment as much as you can. Whatever you like and whatever works, double down on, and whatever you don't like, toss it out. The first year is all about experimenting, and even the second year even. Um, Back to the buyer thing. I always find it really interesting and a little bit strange when real estate agents are not willing to work with buyers because I feel like they're missing out on so much money. Like if you make a rule, only sellers, only listings, I feel like you're missing out on so much money with that rule, no?
Yeah, so I also am the type, I just go like wherever, whatever's gonna bring me money. And like,
Yeah.
I don't care if they're a seller, if they're, a buyer, like I'll work with you. I'm a realtor. It doesn't say on my license listing agent. It
Yeah.
says,
Yeah.
realtor.
Right.
So, but I think that goes down to preference on how somebody wants to run their business. Like my partners that I told you in the Bronx, they're listing agent, but
Mm-hmm.
they bring a lot of their own buyers
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of their listings. So they're able to work both sides of it. It just comes down to preference and how you want to work your business. They referred me a buyer. She's actually closing next month. So if
Nice.
you want to be a listing agent and you want to send out your referral for buyers and still get a little piece of what's going on, then
Mm-hmm.
that's your preference on how you want to run your business. Some agents are just strictly referral agents. They
Yeah.
just send out referrals and they just get 25% of each deal and they're not doing anything.
Wow, that sounds amazing to me. 25% just basically passive income, basically. That sounds amazing to me. I can't wait to reach that point. Uh, Felicia, How do you respond to people who say, I don't need an agent, I can buy without an agent, I can sell without an agent, I don't need an agent. How do you respond to those people?
Well, I never personally had to encounter that, but if somebody said that to me, I would say, that's absolutely their right, if they feel like they don't want to, but I would actually try to just figure out why they feel that way because there
Mhm.
must have been some bad experience that happens in the past and maybe figure out their motivation to see why they even want to do what they're doing. Because one, obviously, with being a cop, one bad apple doesn't mean that everybody's bad. So, I would definitely just want to get to the root of that to why they feel that way.
That's a good answer. Yeah, because everyone feels that way for a different reason. I think a lot of it is ego, and a lot of it is just wanting to save money, and a lot of it is also just not understanding how much we have to offer, whether it's knowledge, whether it's guidance, whether it's, access to MLS, whether it's us paying for certain things, paying for marketing, because we pay for marketing, we pay for photographers, we pay for that stuff too. So I think a lot of it is not knowing how much we have to offer. Felicia, approximately how much per month do you spend into your business?
Hmm, that's a good question. Well, I'm pretty good at leveraging a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I have partners, right? So, like I said, my partners in the Bronx, they're so kind enough. They've let me on their dialer. So I don't have that expense. Um, some of the lenders that I work with make my marketing material, so I don't have to spend too much money on that. I do spend, some marketing stuff here and there. Um, but I would say your typical stuff, right? Your listing, if you have a listing, the photography, um, video. What else could you
What
possibly say?
about Facebook, Instagram ads? Do you put money into ads?
No,
No?
no. I believe in like the organic
Interesting.
approach.
You're not with the internet wave. You don't believe in that?
So don't get me wrong. I have a YouTube, I have an Instagram, I have all of that. I don't use those for new business. I mean, yes, I do, but it's more for, I think of social media as like your resume. Okay. It's how you keep in touch with your past clients, which we don't like to call them past clients because they're always our clients for life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Keep in touch with clients that you've worked with. Keep in touch in general with people who are in your network.
Your sphere.
If someone wants to look you up, they're going to go straight to your social media.
Hmm.
So do you get new business from it? Yes, but I don't believe it just comes as a random DM that someone's like, oh, I want to buy a house. I want to sell my house. Let me DM you and do it. I'm sure it happens, but I'm going to assume that that person was probably in the network for a little bit watching what you're doing prior to them sending that message. So, like when people ask me for business cards, I don't have business cards. What's your Instagram? What's your social media? You can follow me on there. I'm
You don't have business
constantly,
cards?
I have a digital, but I don't
Really?
have a
No
physical because
physical.
people just throw them in the garbage anyway. I mean,
Interesting.
it's but it forces somebody to now watch what you do and the business that you do and the person that you are on social media. What are you going to do with my business card? You're going to throw it in the trash. I'd rather have that line of communication with you on social media where now it's not about business. We're actually building a genuine type of connection because I only want to work with people who want to work with me and vice versa. So that's how I go about it.
I've never heard of a realtor that doesn't have business cards. That's very interesting. I did meet one guy who had that little white thing where you can scan it and then their social media pops up. So I know that's a thing too. Do you have one of those things?
No, it's so I use Popple
Hmm.
and like you can like when you bring it up, they can scan your QR code and then your information will pop up. But as far as like, or you can text it to somebody and they
Right.
can click on it and your social media and email and all that stuff will pop up. But
Mhm.
I think the physical card is like dead. Like in my
Mhm.
opinion, I know agents have it and that's
Right.
cool.
Of
To
course.
me, I just feel like what's the point? I throw other realtors' business cards in the trash. Why would somebody not throw mine in the trash? Like what am I gonna I have a whole pile of them in my truck, like
Right.
what am I doing with these?
Right. It's definitely safe to say that a solid like 95% of them ended up in the trash. But then there's that 5% that gets kept there. Sometimes people would take a picture of it and then throw it in the trash, which is at least something. But well, yeah, maybe one day I'll switch to your strategy. Felicia, tell us about one unforgettable experience you've had in your career.
Um, well, there's a few. One that comes to mind is probably not the best story, but it was a big learning lesson.
Hmm.
Um, I was a new agent, and this is like before they were so strict on like the buyer exclusive and whatever. We're supposed to, when we meet with somebody, get that agency signed, right, with the buyer. But as a new agent, it wasn't something that I was really, let's say, taught to do. You just take the buyer out if they want to see a property, and that's that, right? So I was working with a client, it was probably for 6 months, and she had a program that she had. It was like a grant, but it was a very hefty grant. It was probably for like 100,000, like, grant.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So every time that we would get an offer accepted, the seller's attorney would tell the seller, no, don't take this because this is not guaranteed, blah, blah, blah. Every time it got to the attorneys, this is what would happen. Make a long story short, there was a deal that I told the agent straight up. I'm like, look, we have this program. Is this going to be a problem? Because I don't want it getting to the attorney. And then, this girl's getting her heart broken again because the
Right.
attorney is telling the seller not to take it. Says,
Hmm.
no, 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 it won't be a problem. Now, I was working with an attorney. I have an amazing attorney now, but at the time I was working with an attorney. It was like the first deal. I didn't really know him.
Hmm.
Um, we get it to contract, and what happens? Seller's attorney tells the seller, no, you're not taking this. I tell her, it's almost making it like she's thinking I'm like a liar now.
Yep.
Like what's going on? I'm like, look, I put the listing agent on a three-way with us. I'm like, you tell my client what the seller's saying. So now they're trying to get her to be like, well, can you go FHA? He might feel a little bit comfortable. It's just that this grant is not guaranteed, to go through and whatever. She starts talking to one of my lenders about possibly going FHA. Um, they decide she doesn't want to do it because why would she leave $100,000 on the table? Like it just doesn't make sense.
Of course.
They decide to not, they tell me they're not going through with the deal. I tell her that. She's obviously upset. She's disgruntled, whatever. After that, I was like, all right, this is done. Like, I can't keep going through this with her.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of weeks go by, and I meet up with one of my lenders. Goes, oh, you know who's under contract on a house? And I said, who? And he said, that client. And I was like, oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I said, what's the house that she went under contract with? Guess what? It was the freaking house she's under contract with that they told me that the deal wasn't going through.
Oh my
So I'm like,
God.
what the hell is going on? Right. So now I'm calling the attorney. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why is the client under contract on this house? I'm hitting up the listing agent. Everybody's acting like they don't know what's going on. The
Mm-hmm.
attorney's like, oh, she said you weren't working with her no more. The listing agent's like, oh, I had no idea it was your client. I'm like, BS. You knew 100% that that was my client, and you all went behind my back. So I made a big deal about it because I brought
Of
about
course.
the meeting of the minds. I showed her the property. I was the only one there at the inspection. I even sent in the inspection report. I had the contracts, half of them already, and I brought it up. I made it a big deal. The listing agent, quote unquote, said that he felt terrible. He couldn't sleep at night because of this and that or whatever. I think it was because they didn't want to get in trouble. Um, so they kept giving me the runaround. I had to get my broker involved, but at the same time, I didn't get anything signed, right? So that was like one of my biggest lessons and mess ups. But I could prove that I was working with her for 6 months and whatever. So the agent kept saying, all right, the client was trying to work out to pay my commission. She's like, I'll pay you for your time. My broker's like, no, you're going to pay her for the commission that is owed. We're not going to do that. She went directly to the seller, apparently, and supposedly did this deal with him. Now, fast forward, the listing agent's like, look, they're gonna pay you your commission of what's due. I was like, all
Yeah.
right, cool, perfect. He's like, oh, there's a closing date on such and such date. Did you hear about it? I'm like, no, nobody told me about the date. Well, guess what? They ended up closing and nobody paid me my commission.
Oh my gosh. All because there were no signatures, you said, right?
I could have taken it further if I wanted to. And my broker was like, if you want to take this further, you can, because we had the MLS involved and everything. But I said, you know what? I didn't want her to file a complaint against me. I didn't want that on my record. I didn't want to put in the energy that it was gonna take, although a lot of realtors would have been like, F that, I'm getting that commission. It would have been a very big commission too.
Yeah.
But I also am a believer that in karma, and I do believe in what goes around comes around. And I said, why am I going to put my energy into this when I can put my energy into new business? So I just decided to go that route. Now, if I would have had that stuff signed, full speed ahead, I would have went. Like if that happened now, because obviously now we have to have the buyer exclusive and stuff like that. No, you're not getting away with that at that point. But I was such a new agent and it was a big learning lesson. Do not, I mean, now it's a law. Not a law, but now we have that agencies signed, always have it signed because I know that there are agents out there. I'm sure they're still not doing it, but trust me, it's going to protect you because if you think that someone won't go behind your back in this business,
Oh,
trust me, they will.
anything for money. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if there's one job where people get screwed, it's realtors, you know? Like we're the people who like 95% of our time is wasted. And like you said, it would have been a big check, so but I'm sure you would have had to go to court and this and that and get a lawyer and then you got to pay lawyer fees. So I don't blame you, but I'm glad you learned from that and hopefully other people learn from that as well. Felicia, do you have any tips for new agents?
I would say if you're starting out, get a mentor or a coach.
Hmm.
It's really going to help like full speed ahead your business.
Yep.
Like, it will give you that extra leg up. Um, it- a coach that does business, that's number one. And also that has the time to teach you the sales skills.
Yep.
Even if they cost a lot of money, do it for a little bit, invest in yourself, pay the money, learn the skills because it's really, really going to help because you have a lot of these realtors out there that think they have the sales skills, but they just sound like every other agent, and that's not going to help you when you're on the phone. So when you're looking for a coach, look for somebody who's going to teach you sales psychology, that's going to teach you about how to be empathetic on the phone,
Yep.
that's going to teach you not to be a sleazy salesperson, but to just be a human being because the fastest way to get hung up on is if you sound like every single other agent that's calling.
Yep, you got to stand out. Felicia, where can people find you?
So my Instagram, your favorite underscore home agent. I'm on YouTube as well, but Instagram is probably the best way.
I'll put all your info below. Felicia, it was so great talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good one, Felicia. Take care.
All right, bye.